On today's show, your 2025 San Diego Padres rotation is set, at least in the early going, with Kyle Hart and Randy Vasquez set to join the rotation and Stephen Kolek being optioned to the minors. And of course, talking about Michael King, deep dive into his career thus far, including with the Yankees, what made him so special, what made him so coveted, and then his 2024 breakout and what he could do in 2025 and beyond, including potentially an extension. We'll have to see. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Padres podcast, which is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day for Wednesday, March 26th. As always, I'm your host with sometimes, occasionally, but certainly not always the most, Javier Reyes. You can follow me on Twitter/X and Blue Sky at Javipeno, Javiipeno. I've been quiet on social media for a while now, but don't worry, with the regular season kicking off tomorrow, you best believe I'm going to be posting more. It's going to be a lot of fun, including on this channel, doing shorts, doing all sorts of fun things. So be sure to keep it locked here on Locked On Padres, your first listen every day. Today's episode, guys, we got to talk a little bit about the final announcements for this rotation, and then we're going to get into Michael King, do another kind of single-player deep dive, since some of you have at least reached out and said that you've really enjoyed these thus far. So let's get into the news first. Kyle Hart and Randy Vasquez are expected to join the rotation. Not expected, but it is the final kind of decision. They optioned Luis Campusano, infielder/outfielder Connor Joe, Stephen Kolek, and Ron Marinaccio to AAA. So my first reaction is this. I thought that Kolek probably had the best spring. Kyle Hart looked really, really bad in the spring. But as we discussed a few weeks ago, with the money that they gave him, that's usually a little bit of a sign that they probably expect them to be a player that they want to use in the rotation. He added a sweeper. He added a better slot release. We'll see. We'll see what happens. The Padres clearly saw something in him. And may I tell you, unlike yesterday's episode, when I was really frustrated with the Eggy Rosario decision, and he might end up getting waived and then being gone for nothing, and the Padres never used him, and my thing was, you know what, he could have been a nice platoon DH guy. He kills lefties, and we have some players in this lineup that do not do well against lefties. I thought there was some opportunity there. He's got a decent glove. I don't know why you're taking a 40-year-old. Right? I don't know why you're taking a 40-year-old who's been bad for 3 straight years over the opportunity for someone like Eggy Rosario planning. I'm really still livid about that, frankly. And I think I'm going to be proven right about that. We'll see. And just because even if Yuli Gurriel starts hot and he hits 300 over the first 2 weeks, that doesn't mean I'm wrong, right? But we'll see. With this, however, I will say that while Stephen Kolek's stuff, I think, is the most interesting. It's comparable a little bit to our starter that we're going to be talking about today in Michael King, except not nearly as dynamite, don't get me wrong. But what I like about him is the ground ball rate, and I just fundamentally like that you'd have that type of pitcher in the back half of your rotation, right? And I like it's a little bit annoying. His stuff plus grades out a lot better than Randy Vasquez, who I think is a player who's, in my opinion, a little bit more conducive to a long inning relief role. But granted, we'll have to see, because I think the bullpen is actually going to be really good as it stands. But in fairness, they were optioned. And that's one of the reasons I didn't like the Eggy Rosario thing, is because they could lose him entirely, right? With Stephen Kolek, maybe he needs some more innings. It's possible that they want to just give him some reps in AAA. I made this case for Luis Campusano. Maybe they're like, you know what? Let's start a guy who is just a veteran presence on the team. He's not going to play too much. Elias Diaz is going to be the starter, and he can be there while Luis Campusano maybe gets a little bit of stuff. Get some get some at-bats under his resume, under his belt, whatever you want to call it, and then maybe you call him up a little bit later. He's got some practice in AAA. He usually does pretty well in AAA. Then you call him up to the majors, and maybe he can do something better. You at least have an option left with him. So I understood that one. And I think you could maybe make that case here as well with Stephen Kolek. I don't think that we're not going to see him, right? I think it's very possible that we see him get called up at some point, and I don't mind them saying, you know what, let's test this out a little bit in the AAA waters. And another thing is this. The other reason why I'm really annoyed with the Yuli Gurriel thing is because the Padres have not shown that they are good at building out the rest of their lineup depth over the past few years. We broke down back of the rotation, we broke down bullpen, we broke down the lineup depth. That is something they have struggled with the exception of last year with Donovan Solano, Jerickson Profar, Luis Arraez, and Kyle Higashioka all being aces, right? But when it comes to the rotation, we found that they've actually been pretty good, whether it be your Zach Davies types or Dinelson Lamet's breakout season or the Michael Wacha and Seth Lugo season, right? Making Blake Snell a lot better. Just in terms of pitching, especially since they brought Ruben Abel on board, they've actually done a good job there. So I actually do think they do deserve a little bit of patience. They deserve a little bit of credit and trust when it comes to their rotation decisions. In my opinion, more than they deserve credit and patience for the Eggy Rosario decision. I think that one is like, you have not proven to me beyond last year that you know what you're doing with this stuff. But with pitching, we'll see. I think that it could very well turn out okay for them. I still think we might see Stephen Kolek. I don't know if Randy Vasquez is going to be any better, but he lost a little bit of weight in the offseason. He could very well be very solid. I can't wait. I mean, maybe this is just, again, this could be just me. I host this podcast every day. I talk about this team every day. Maybe I'm just excited to talk about the last two guys in a rotation that we don't know what are going to produce. I know I might just be a sicko that I'm getting excited over, like, wow, I can't wait to see these guys pitch. In general, I can't wait to see Nick Pivetta, Kyle Hart, and Randy Vasquez pitch, debatably over Michael King and Dylan Cease. I already feel like I know what I'm getting with those guys, right? Especially with the former, who we're going to talk about in a second. All in all, though, rotation's fine. I think a big thing is just going to be Darvish, and I don't think this is set for the whole season. It hardly ever is for even the good teams that they have options and they're sure what their guys are going to be. It's hardly ever stays that way. I like that we have at least some interesting vibes, some interesting talent in Stephen Kolek, who looked very sharp in the spring and best of all, produces a crap ton of ground balls. So I'm excited for it. I'm not livid with this decision because at least there's a plan and at least there is a possibility. I can see the thinking of give him some time in AAA, have him some time, give him some time to warm up. Remember, it is still a guy who'd been pitching as a reliever primarily. The other guys have a little bit more experience as starters. So that why, I'm okay with it. That why. I said that weird. In that sense, I'm all for it, guys. So not too upset. But now we got to talk about Mr. Michael King, guys. Deep diving into his career thus far. And unlike some of the other player breakdowns we've been doing over the course of this offseason, this is a player that doesn't have like a super long career resume. This is not Manny Machado, who I actually forgot some things about when doing the episode about him because his career has so many plot lines, so many different narratives, so many things to get to. It is not like Fernando Tatis Jr., who's arguably even more than Manny Machado in his own way with a lot of the off-field drama and whatnot, and I was really excited about him. With Michael King, I think that this player is as close you get lately to a guarantee when it comes to Padres players. I think that Joe Musgrove, we always knew what we were getting from him. Manny Machado, you basically always know what you're getting from him. And frankly, to a degree, I don't care what the numbers say. I still think he's an amazing defensive player. I just don't agree with some of the defensive numbers based on when I watch him. But anyway, I'm really excited to talk about Michael King because it does feel like, barring some catastrophe, this guy is an ace and could be the guy that anchors the Padres rotation for years ahead. Because I think they need to think about extending him. I really, really do. And they need to prioritize that over, even if it's not as fun and sexy, over a Jackson Merrill extension. But that could be just me. But I'm going to explain it to you and why he's been so great in just 1 second, guys. But first, we need to talk about one of our sponsors. And that sponsor today, ladies and gentlemen, it is a wonderful one. It is a sensational one, some would say. But specifically wonderful because that is their name. It is our friends over at Wonderful Pistachios, guys. Let me tell you, if you're looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious, you could crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. It is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. And personally, I like the no shells. Maybe you're just, you just want to reach into that bag, you know what I mean? Just get yourself some Snickers. All that sort of stuff is good. They've got different kind of like honey roasted flavors as well. That's very, very good. And they just quite simply pack a protein punch, grab and go ease. It's really great, especially for someone like me who's trying to kind of curb my appetite a little bit, trying to lose a little bit of weight, trying to use my exercise a little bit more. But especially when it comes to curbing your appetite and being just satisfied and getting your protein, I don't know what else you could want other than Wonderful Pistachios. So go check them out, guys. Get snackin' and get crackin' with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. And just like that, everybody, we are back thriving, and most certainly vibing here on the Locked On Padres podcast. Remember, my everydayers, go check me out on Twitter/X and Blue Sky at Javipeno, JAVIIPENO, as we get closer to opening day. In fact, not even closer. I shouldn't say that. We're one day away for opening day. Going to be a lot of fun. And by the way, stay tuned for the podcast tomorrow. We're going to be doing our first crossover preview of the season. Very, very excited that with my guy, and very poetic. He was the first guest I ever had on the show, actually, Mr. Jake Mastriani of Locked On Braves. That's going to be a fun one, guys. But let's talk about Michael King. Enough about previewing. Enough with the self-promo, Javi. My goodness. Let's talk about Michael King. The first 2 years of his career, it starts with the Yankees, obviously. And it's not really all that interesting in a lot of ways, right? Like, there's not really much to report here, right? First 2 seasons, he comes in for 2 innings in 2019. That doesn't really count. In 2020, he makes a brief appearance. And in fairness, this is a top-level prospect, right? This is not a top-level guy necessarily, the way that a Jason Dominguez or an Aaron Judge or Anthony Volpe or even at times a Will Warren has been regarded. But still, considered to be one of their prospects. He pitches 26 innings and he gets absolutely destroyed. 7.76 ERA. But the numbers suggested, okay, this is just what happens sometimes. He gave up a few home runs on a bad spot, but whatever. It's 2020, doesn't matter. Then 2021, he starts showing flashes almost immediately, posting a really solid strikeout rate of 22.5% and a walk rate of 8.7%. That's pretty good. That's pretty dang good for a guy who this is basically the first time he's having a full kind of season under his belt. 63 innings. He's not fully converted into a starter just yet, but he's still really solid in the innings that he's had. But this is one of the things that's going to come up is health, right? He was not able to pitch all that much into the year, 63.1 innings pitched. And then in 2022, the same sort of situation arises, but he shows even more devastating talent. 51 innings, he has a 2.29 ERA, expected ERA of 2.81, and a FIP, most impressively, of 2.23. The guy is striking out dudes like it's going out of style. 33.2% strikeout rate. And if you're thinking, well, that was a fluke, it was only 51 innings. Well, he comes back in 2023 and becomes a little bit of a, I wouldn't say like a frontline starter for the Yankees, who have a pretty good rotation around this time, but he's a little bit of a Swiss Army. He was kind of like, to phrase it for Padres fans, a little bit of Nick Martinez usage here, where yes, there were games that he started, but it's mostly like a couple innings here and there, just finding ways to get him in there, and it ends up working. It is not a fluke. In the 104 innings that he pitches, so 50 more than his 2022 season, he has absolute filth in his arsenal, guys. 2.75 ERA on the season, and the FIP is also good at 3.13. Strikeout rate goes down a little bit, but 29.5% is nothing to sneeze at. And then, just as all the hype is building, all this stuff, the universes collided. You know, Astros, just stars exploded and suns went aflame. Because thanks to a bunch of cosmic reasons, Juan Soto ends up being available again on the trade block. And boy, folks, you remember this. Good Padres fans. The big news comes out that the Padres are like, you know what? Our financials aren't great, so we got to make a trade and get this joker off our team. And as Padres fans would say, a meaningless stat patter off our team. I'm mostly kidding, but I have noticed that Padres fans like are a little bit like divided on Soto. Just a tiny bit. I'd say it's like 70-30 approve and disapprove. And I get it to an extent because he wasn't like as incredible there as he was with the Yankees, like with the Padres with them was the Yankees. But even still, that wasn't his fault. 2023, he did all he could. Blame Xander Bogaerts, Machado, Trent Grisham, and Jay Cronenworth. Like, what are we doing here? Anyway, moving on. The trade, of course, happens. And for those who don't remember, it is Juan Soto and Trent Grisham in exchange for Michael King, Drew Thorpe, Randy Vasquez, Johnny Brito, and Kyle Higashioka. Now, that trade ended up being dynamite. And here's the thing. At the time, my thing was I actually didn't hate that trade. I thought that I hate that we got to that point because you gave up so many prospects, a lot of which are currently making waves on the Washington Nationals. But at least with this trade, you did get a lot of much needed depth for a team that didn't have depth. And for a team that, frankly, was not going to be able to keep Soto beyond this year. And as evidenced by this offseason, correct, they were not going to be able to sign this guy for $765 million. That was not happening. So the Padres kind of won the trade, at least for them. The Yankees, they made a World Series. I'm not going to hate them. It depends on how you view it as a Yankees fan. But Michael King, at the time, the reason I liked it was because of what we had seen. If you combine those last 2 years that I just talked about, he had a 2.60 ERA and a 30.6% strikeout rate over 155.2 innings. That's really, really, really good. And of course, they acquired him and were like, he's going to be a starter. But in fairness, some people were wondering, how is he going to translate as a starter? And initially, it wasn't great. For one thing, I was a little bit nervous because his fastball velocity went down. Instead of being in the 54th percentile in 2023 or the year before when he was in the 82nd percentile, my thing was like, with a pitcher like him, for him to decrease the fastball velo so much, I was a little bit worried. And I wasn't confident that his sinker was going to be all that much better either. But what he did do is he confidently just got better with that pitch. In 2022, you actually saw a little bit more rise in his sinker, right? Like less rise in his sinker, right? He was starting to just be able to locate that pitch a lot better and have the right kind of movement at the right kind of times. But I was still worried about the fastball, especially with a pitcher like him. But guess what? Turned out we were fine because man, oh man, did Michael King have a good season, but again, didn't start off perfectly. In the month, to start off the season, right, he was home run happy ball. He had a 2.5 home run per 9 rate, which amounts to 10 home runs, over the course of March and April, which is why he had a 5 ERA. And that was the highest of all qualified starters to start the season. Right? Not the ERA, but the home run fly ball rate, right? That was really bad. The guy was just giving up home runs left and right. Michael King was number 1 with a 2.5 home run per 9 rate. Then Joe Musgrove, our boy, at 2.2. Then Dean Kramer at 2.10. Then Austin Gomber in Colorado, the Rockies, right? Michael King was giving up more home runs than a guy in Colorado. Hasn't been turning out very good. And then Dane Dunning at 1.93. Those are the 5 in the months of March and April, right? Like, it wasn't a good start for our boy, but he was still figuring things out. And one of the things that you saw change, well, first of all, he got married prior to the offseason, so that should have been evidence that this man was destined for greatness, folks. Yeah, no, in all seriousness, I love that. He also showed some really good confidence. He praised AJ Preller, and he was confident in saying he feels like the Padres won the trade, right? That is a real quote from Michael King. Let me be specific, actually. He said, I continue to praise Padres general manager AJ Preller and be confident in saying I feel like the Padres won the trade. King said by phone from San Diego on Monday. I feel like the talent we've gotten. I was shocked to see the Yankees part with that many people. Obviously, it's Juan Soto, so you have to give up a big package, but I was pumped to see who was coming with me to San Diego. I know they're going to contribute this year and for years to come. I love the confidence. Again, I would be confident too if I had just gotten married, but nonetheless, that was really cool. And by the way, Jake Cronenworth also married before the start of last season, and he had a nice bounce back season, especially from a batting perspective. But anyway, enough of the dumb, trivial reasons for why he was great. What really happened, I think, is his pitch arsenal just got a little bit better as the course of the season went on. And specifically, it just started changing, I think, significantly. If you're watching on YouTube, I put a little bit graph up to just show you how his pitch arsenal vacillated greatly at the beginning of the season. Sometimes he uses fastball, sometimes he didn't use it at all. Sometimes his sinker, he was using a little bit, then it went all the way down, then it went all the way back up. That's one of the things that happened, is just a huge vacillation in all of his pitches, whether it be his slider, whether it be his fastball, whether it be his changeup, all these sort of things going all over the place, right? And then things started to stabilize a lot more as the rest of the season got, unfolded, I should say. That was a big sign, right? He was clearly still figuring things out. And one of the big notes that you can look at is he started using his sinker a lot more, and it eventually became his most used pitch, and it is a pitch that was just really good, right? Like, overall, he was just able to limit hard contact, right? Which is pretty funny that he then, from the beginning of the season with the home run happy ball, he then finished with an average exit velocity allowed of 85.7 miles per hour, which was in the 99th percentile of all Major League pitchers, and he finished with the 30.3% hard hit rate, which was in the 97th percentile of all pitchers, right? So he literally started giving up home runs, then he figured out, all right, maybe I don't want my fastball to be my most used pitch, right? Maybe it'll be my third most used pitch. And instead, I'm going to focus on nitpicking the corners, using my changeup at the right time, and sinker, which I have a lot of good movement on, and I kept the ball down. This guy just did not give up home runs, basically for the rest of the year until the playoffs, which we'll get to in a second. But his changeup, it actually had a +9 run value to it, which was the Fifth best among all starting pitchers. Tyler Anderson was actually number one, which is pretty funny. This is why I've been a Tyler Anderson supporter for a few years. But then Christopher Sanchez, Bailey Ober, Michael Wacha, those were the only ones better. That's pretty good company. So while I was bringing out the home run happy ball at the beginning with guys like Dean Kramer and Austin Gomber and Dane Dunning, look at the company that put him in, right? His changeup was better than basically any starter out there that we really, really like, not to mention all the other pitchers that made him great. And his changeup, it was even better than some superstars like Cole Reagans and Tariq Skubal in terms of run value, right? He was excellent. He was excellent. And I really think that you can attribute a lot to it, to what I just mentioned, right? Just to sum it up. I think that what happened with Michael King was he figured out his stuff as the season went on. The dip in the fastball velocity was fine. He extended himself and he was great. And frankly, I don't see any way it gets any worse. I just don't. That was a bad way to phrase that. I don't see any way that he doesn't keep this up. Is it possible that next season he starts off a little bit slow? Sure. But that's why we got to talk about next season, the 2025 outlook, and whether or not he should be a guy that the Padres look to extend. Got to talk about that, guys, in just a second. But first, some words from some of our sponsors. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, and that is what we do on here. We give love to our sponsors, and one of them is our good friends over at the Monarch, specifically Monarch Money. If you ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Well, between dining, online shopping, entertainment, going to the bar, whatever, it's easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you stop just managing your money and start rebuilding your wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, by the way, you can just use it to check in on your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. And they've got some really cool insights. I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Let me tell you, it's a lot, folks, especially by looking at you, you'd be able to tell, right? But now I budget smarter and save more. And if you manage money with your partner, it's now smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off for your first year. Go check that out. And also, go check out our friends over at the House That Often Supplies, ladies and gentlemen. That is our friends over at Supply House, and they help you. The skilled trades, whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400 plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. And if you need help with an order, don't worry. Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service. Don't worry, you're not going to get robocalls or anything like that with these folks. Always a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, and now it's your turn. So join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. And guess what? One promo thing for you, because I'm so generous. Promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Go check it out. And just like that, everybody, we are back here on Locked On Padres podcast, thriving and vibing into our final segment on one Sir Michael King. The last thing I want to talk about with him is pretty simple. The playoffs, right? He also had a really great moment for the Padres when he pitched against the Braves, who he will be pitching against on opening day tomorrow, which is going to be a lot of fun. And for those who don't remember, first playoff start for this magical 2024 Padres team, 7 innings, 5 hits, 0 earned runs. I need to slow my speaking down. I gotta get better at doing that, folks. What can I tell you? 0 earned runs, 0 walks, and 12 strikeouts. Unfortunately, he wasn't as great against the Dodgers, and I've often brought up that people kill Cease for his performance against the Dodgers. The first one. The second one was like, well, it was short rest, so whatever. But the first one, and my thing is like, well, Michael King also really struggled. He gave up a grand slam to Teoscar Hernandez, which brought the Dodgers right back into the game. That they ended up winning still, the Padres. But nonetheless, 5 innings, 5 hits, 5 earned runs, 1 walk, and 3 Ks. But still, Michael King overall just had an amazing season. And let me tell you, you already saw, let's get into the outlook for 2025. You already saw what happened with this man getting married prior to the offseason, right? He came in and delivered an absolute gem of a season. In fact, he was one of only 4 pitchers to strike out at least 200 batters and have a sub-3 ERA, joining Cy Young winners Chris Sale and Tariq Skubal, and also Zach Wheeler being the other one. So that's pretty insane, right? Like that's when you know you had a dynamite season. And frankly, in some ways, if not for Chris Sale, maybe he's a little bit of a competition for that Cy Young, maybe. Maybe it's just him and Zach Wheeler. I don't know. We'll have to see. But nonetheless, in 2025, he got married this past offseason. Guess what's happening now? He's having a child. He is going to be a dad. He has dad energy. First, he had married energy, and now he has dad energy. Let me tell you, folks, I don't even know what he's going to look like. This man's pitching to a 2.1 ERA. He's striking out 250 batters. It's about to be madness, folks. But no. Just the same way I was joking about how that was one of the reasons he got better over the course of last season with just getting married in general. And all seriousness, congratulations to the King family and his wife, Sheila. Let me tell you what I actually think of Michael King for this year. There's a little bit of regression that I expect, but not regression in the way that I'm like, this guy won't be a top tier starter. I still think he's probably has an outside chance or probably an inside chance at being a top 15 or so starting pitcher this year. The only thing with him is he does give up a lot of walks, right? His walk rate was at 8.7% last year, which was in the 39th percentile. That's not great. And he doesn't produce as many ground balls as he would like. He gets a decent amount of Ks. He gets a decent amount of whiffs. We've talked about that. But with the low walk rate and a low ground ball rate, I wouldn't be surprised if he has a little bit of ERA regression, which is what StatCast is predicting. Right? His expected ERA was a little bit higher, but I don't think it's going to be higher in a detrimental way where we're like really upset with this guy, right? Like, I don't think that that's going to happen necessarily. I think that it's like a 3-3 because what could happen? Maybe a 3-4, 3-5 even could potentially happen. And I'm totally okay with that. That doesn't mean he's not still going to be a great pitcher. He's looked pretty good in the spring, but I think with all of that, and not to mention it will be his second time being a full-time starter, it's possible that he struggles at the beginning of the season, similar to how he struggled at the beginning of last year, right? This is not some guy like, say, Dylan Cease or, say, a Hugh Darvish or, say, a Blake Snell. No, Blake Snell's actually a really bad example. Or, some other aces throughout the league where they've been pitching full-time for a while now. So that's what I expect. 3.4 ERA, I still think he's going to be great. I still think he's cracked 200 Ks. And not to mention, on top of the dad energy and all that whatnot, he's also going to be a free agent at the end of this season. Unless something really bad were to occur, where like he's really bad this year or he gets hurt or something, I don't know, then the mutual option for $16 million is picked up, then he's going to be a free agent this offseason, right? And I think that what we could see is a contract similar to what Kevin Gausman got because of a few reasons. And for those who don't remember, he signed a 5-year, $110 million contract with the Toronto Blue Jays. I think that given the leverage he may have, given that it's not necessarily the strongest starting pitching market, that you're going to have Dylan Cease as one of the top guys potentially on the market, the guy that I do believe will enter free agency no matter what the Padres do because he is a Boris guy. I think that Michael King, because it's a little bit less like stellar numbers, right? And with the Giants, when Kevin Gausman was there, he posted 3.62 ERA, then he posted 2.81, substantiating all the really good numbers he had before, and then he got paid by Toronto, and he was great. Like he was awesome for 2 years. And last year he stepped back a little bit for the Blue Jays, but he was still okay. I think the body of work isn't fully there. That's kind of what is predicted. I could see him getting a little bit more, but I think overall, this is not a guy who's going to get $200 million because he just hasn't had that body of work. And I think they're going to model it off of a guy like that. I think Robbie Ray could be another guy that they model this off of. Robbie Ray was a good pitcher, don't get me wrong. He had always shown really good potential. He had always been a big strikeout guy, but he had some years in there where he was quite bad, and it looked like he'd fallen completely apart. And then he had the season with the Blue Jays in which he won his Cy Young Award, which is, by the way, my God, remember when that happened? Remember when Robbie Ray won a Cy Young Award? That was like one of the most random Cy Young wins that I can remember happening. Like, genuinely, pretty crazy. So I think that that's what they could get him for. And I think the Padres should absolutely look to extending him because their rotation gets scary. We've talked about this a lot on the past few episodes. After Michael King and Dylan Cease, it's Nick Pivetta, then it's Yu Darvish maybe, right? And with him aging more and more, and even potential whispers of retirement potentially coming in, then you have that situation. You don't have a lot of pitching prospects right now, unless Cash Meafield has an unprecedented level of rise in the farm system. You don't have a lot of prospects there. You would just be signing some bargain bin guys to fill out your rotation, right? And don't get me wrong, maybe we have some type of breakout. Maybe Kyle Hart's really good. Maybe Steven Kolek's very good. Maybe Randy Vasquez is pretty good. But overall, you want to lock down at least one of those guys. That way you at least you have one guy to anchor your rotation, because I don't think you can keep Cease. I really don't. He's going to cost too much, and he's going to hit free agency, as he is a Boris guy. So that's what I see. And frankly, if they were to pay him the 5 years, 115, 5 years, 110 that Robbie Ray or Kevin Gausman got, I would not mind that for this team whatsoever, right? I've even heard some predictions say 4 years, 110. Right? And for me, I think the Padres doing now, the AAV would be tough to sell, but we've heard a couple reports from Padres leadership, Padres management, Padres ownership that are like, hey, the interest in attendance, our standing as a big time, or at least more exciting team, has made our revenue plans change a little bit. This is a recent story I actually saw in the Tribune. So maybe there's a vibe that they're like, maybe we can take on a little bit higher salary. And I think that would be okay. And it would give the Padres a little bit more leg room to be like, all right, we're not committed to guys forever, right? We don't want to necessarily do that. So a 4-year deal wouldn't be too bad. And potentially, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a little bit less. Because again, at least with Robbie Ray, you had seen it in the past. He had been pitching as a full-time starter a lot. One of those years was amazing with the D-backs. Then it was a lot of mid. Then it was like, wow, this is hilarious. This guy, all he does is give up walks, gets strikeouts, or gives up home runs. But then you also look at a guy like Gausman, an okay starter, and then he blew up a little bit more with San Francisco. They still had more of a resume. So I wouldn't be shocked if it's a little bit lower than maybe people are projecting. But overall, I am fully on board extending Michael King whenever you get the chance. And given the fact that they went to arbitration, they still worked something out. And in general, AJ Preller and management have been very good working with their players and not, for lack of a better comparison, doing the Corbin Burns situation that happened with the Brewers, where for $720K, they were like, we're going to nickel and dime you. It's like, what are we doing here? This is a Cy Young winner. I'm really optimistic that they can figure out a deal. I think they're going to. I don't think Michael King is a guy that is going out in free agency and getting $160 million. I just don't see it as of right now. And it depends on the season he does have, of course. So, and depending on the season, and I think the season's going to be a little bit of a regression potentially in 2025. Not in a way that affects the team dramatically, right? Like, this is still a frontline starter that I think is going to be very good. But overall, those are my kind of vibes, and I think that you got to prioritize that over Jackson Merrill, because bottom line is your entire position group is practically extended with Tatis, Manny, Bogarts, Cronenworth. Those are 4 guys just right there, man. So maybe you should take it easy on the extensions, but given the dire need for starting pitching, I think that they need to do Michael King, because then you'd head into next year with Michael King, Joe Musgrove, Yu Darvish, Nick Pivetta. Those are 4 decent starters. And then if you get some depth, or if you just get another decent option, forget depth for a second from the Padres' point of view. Look at it in the perspective of what's on the market. Can we get another Nick Pivetta type deal? I think they can, and I trust Preller to fill that out again. I don't think you can do that with offense. I think that they would be in a really tough shape if they were to extend another player who, in my opinion, he ain't going to settle for something less than what a Julio Rodriguez got. You know, I would love to do what Michael Harris did with the Braves. That would be awesome. But the Braves have some devil magic going over there where they just get all their players to agree to deals that are below market value. I don't understand how they do it, but it's what they do. So those are my thoughts, guys, on Michael King for the 2025 season and all of his stuff beforehand and what makes him so great and what makes him, I haven't done the pun yet, a king, folks. That is it for today's episode, guys, of the Locked On Padres podcast, the only pod that may be better than the Padres themselves. Remember, subscribe to the pod wherever you get your podcasts from. Follow me again on Twitter /X and Blue Sky at Javipeno, Javiipeno. Tomorrow's episode is with Jake Mastriani previewing the opening day series. I cannot wait. check me out on all the social medias because I'm going to be tweeting about the game. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be posting some more YouTube shorts and some stuff on TikTok. I will not reveal my username just yet because I want to make sure I figure it out. But stay tuned for that. And then Friday, we're going to be recapping opening day. It's going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait to do it, guys. Baseball is friggin' back, baby. Let's ride! By the way, in my one fantasy league, I was able to draft Tatis the other day. Very happy about that. And Lindor, too. And Nick Pivetta. Draft him in fantasy. He's going way, way, way too low. But anyway, with that all being said, guys, until next time, stay safe and, of course, stay faithful, my Fire Faithful homies. Take care.